Ava was an ordinary young woman, working at a small cafe and striving for her life to flow smoothly and painlessly. She rarely drew attention to herself, preferring to lurk in the shadows and remain unnoticed. But fate had its own plans for her, and they began to unfold when each of her visits to the local Walmart turned into a nightmare. Walmart was where Ava regularly went shopping. But ever since she noticed the strange behavior of one of the cashiers, her visits there became a real ordeal. This cashier, a young man with an intrusive gaze and an unnaturally wide smile named Liam, tried to get her attention every time he crossed her path. He called her by name, though she never told him hers. He tried to strike up conversations with her, asking about her life, what she liked to do in her free time, her food and clothing preferences. Ava had long been accustomed to men's intrusiveness, but Liam's behavior scared her. She felt that something was off, that this guy wasn't just pushy, but rather as if he was trying to pry into her personal life, as if something was lurking behind his smile and gaze. And every time she saw him at the cash register, Ava's heart would beat faster, and she always tried to use any other checkout, hurrying to leave the store and trying not to catch his eye. But the more she tried to avoid him, the more it seemed like he was pursuing her. The first time she felt someone was watching her, she decided it was just her imagination. But later, in the reflection of one of the high-rise buildings, she saw Liam behind her as she walked home from work. He kept his distance, but his gaze was fixed directly on her, as if delving into the depths of her soul. It was terrifying. Ava felt like her world was falling apart, that she could no longer feel safe anywhere. She became afraid to leave her home, feeling like Liam's eyes were watching her everywhere, even when she was inside her apartment. One evening, as she sat in her living room trying to calm her nerves, she saw a reflection in the window behind her. She turned her head and saw Liam standing on the street opposite her house. He was smiling at her, his eyes shining in the darkness, and Ava felt like her heart was about to leap out of her chest. She knew something had to be done about this. She called the police and told them about her stalker. They promised to help her, and after that she never heard from him again. Most likely, the actions taken by the police had the desired effect on her pursuer. But even after that, she couldn't shake the feeling that Liam would always be watching her, that his shadow would follow her everywhere she went. In the end, she decided that the only way to get rid of this nightmare was to move to another city where Liam would never be able to find her. And although she knew it wouldn't solve her problem forever, she still packed up her things and left, leaving behind only an empty house and the fear that never left her. A group of friends, inspired by the idea of spending a night in the closed-for-the-weekend Walmart for a makeover, gathered in the parking lot in front of the store. One of the friends, Morris, worked as a manager at this hypermarket, so he had the opportunity to get inside as he was appointed to oversee the renovation process. Laughter and joyful shouts echoed through the deserted corridors as they entered the premises. In the darkness, the shelves of goods seemed more eerie than usual as the store plunged into darkness at night after closing. Their exploration brought them a lot of enjoyment. They played hide and seek among the shelves and joked around, trying on strange headgear from the clothing department. Then it was time for a snack. Settling into one of the spacious sections, they pulled out their snacks and a thermos of tea. They talked and joked as if they had forgotten where they were. Suddenly, Kevin, one of the group members, woke up lying on the floor. He jumped to his feet, feeling nervous and confused. The last thing he remembered was everyone sitting around eating and talking. He didn't even remember falling asleep. Running through possible scenarios in his mind, he looked around and found that his friends were simply missing. But what was even more frightening, when he reached into his pocket, he found that his phone was gone. "Hey guys, where are you?" Kevin called out, but only the echo of his own voice responded in the empty corridors. He hurried to the exit, hoping to meet his friends along the way, but when he got there, the door was locked. He felt his anxiety rising as he realized he was trapped here alone. Kevin's heart pounded harder as he began searching for an exit and his friends. The unlit corridors felt unnaturally dead to him. He felt the space of Walmart closing in around him, as if it breathed its own atmosphere. His footsteps echoed hollowly, as if he were alone in this giant place. At first, his search yielded no results. He searched the same places where they had set up a resting spot and went through all the departments where they had spent time, but found no trace of his friends. His voice, as he shouted their names, seemed unrealistically quiet in the huge expanse of the store. Soon his fear began to take the form of paranoia. Every dark hiding place or noise around the corner seemed like a threat to him. Kevin felt like eyes were watching him from the shadows, and he would hastily turn around to see only emptiness. Kevin went through possible options in his mind. He was scared to stay alone in this dark store, but he knew he had to act. Kevin decided he needed to find a way out of this store. He surveyed the space around him and noticed a sign for security office in the distance. Maybe they could help him get out. His heart pounded harder as he moved towards the security office. He hoped to find someone there who could help him escape this nightmare. When he reached the security office, Kevin knocked on the door, hoping someone would hear him. But there was no response. He tried to open the door, but it was locked. He looked around for a key or some way to get inside. Suddenly his eyes fell on the table next to the door, where a set of keys lay. Kevin quickly grabbed them and tried each one in turn. Finally, one of the keys fit and the lock clicked. Kevin entered the office and was struck by the gloomy atmosphere. The room seemed empty, with surveillance monitors hanging on the walls, but all of them were turned off. He scanned the desks and cabinets but found nothing useful. His heart raced again as he glanced at the clock on the wall. Time was ticking, and he knew he had to act fast. He began to search the office more thoroughly, hoping to find something that would help him escape. Scanning the room, Kevin scrutinized every corner, but seemingly found nothing. Suddenly his gaze caught a small door in the corner of the room. Perhaps it was a closet or a storage room. He approached the door and tried to open it. The door was unlocked, and Kevin cautiously pushed it open. Behind the door was a small storage room. Stepping inside, Kevin discovered shelves filled with various items. He began to examine the contents closely. Among the useless documents and other items, his eyes caught something small and shiny. He reached out and took the item. It was a keycard, similar to the ones employees use to access different areas of the store. Kevin's heart raced again with hope. Perhaps this card would help him find an exit, or at least find someone who could help. With the keycard in hand, he exited the storage room and returned to the security office. Now he had a new goal, to find a place where he could use this card and hopefully find assistance or a way out of this nightmare. Kevin approached the desk and examined the store map more closely. There were no useful markings or labels indicating specific areas or exits where he could use the keycard. He realized he would have to go blindly. Deciding not to waste any time, he left the security office and headed towards the main aisle of the store. His heart pounded harder with each step. He tried different doors, but most of them were locked or led to nowhere. Finally, he found a door with an electronic lock, where he might be able to use the key. He swiped the keycard on the reader and was surprised to hear the door unlock. He entered the next corridor, which seemed even darker and gloomier than the previous one. Dim light from lanterns illuminated the space, and the shadows seemed denser and more threatening. Kevin continued to move forward, trying to ignore the feeling of fear that engulfed him. Each step felt like an endless trial, but he knew he couldn't stop. Soon he heard a faint buzzing sound in the distance. He approached the source of the sound until he finally emerged into an open space, the store's warehouse area. Before him stretched long rows of shelves with various goods and buzzing refrigerators immersed in darkness. Kevin looked around for an exit or signs of life, but emptiness enveloped him from all sides. Kevin continued to make his way through the warehouse area, inspecting every nook and cranny for an exit or signs that someone else was nearby. His footsteps echoed loudly in the silence, and every creak and thud sent shivers down his spine. Suddenly his attention was drawn to a faint, glowing strip at the end of one of the rows of shelves. Kevin approached and discovered it was a window. His heart pounded harder. This could be the way out. He rushed to the window, but his joy quickly turned to disappointment when he saw that the window was barred with metal grates. He tried to open it, but to no avail. Panic began to wash over him again, and he felt like time was running out. Suddenly he heard rustling behind him. When he turned around, he saw his friends in front of him. They started laughing, looking at Kevin, but he had only fear and confusion on his face. "Where were you? Why did you leave me alone and not respond?" Kevin shouted at them, his anger genuine. As it turned out, the guys conspired and decided to prank their friend by drugging his tea with sleeping pills and leaving him alone in the closed hypermarket, hiding in the warehouse. For the sake of this prank, Morris even arranged with the guards to leave their post for a few hours with surveillance cameras turned off. But for Kevin himself, this incident was not funny at all. He couldn't understand why they decided to do this and could only feel anger. After that, their friendship barely survived, as Kevin could not forget or forgive them for a very long time. This prank hung over their relationship for a good amount of time and almost destroyed the friendship of the group of good friends.